This is Michael Popok with a Legal AF YouTube exclusive hot take. Rudy Giuliani just lost another case, this time in New Hampshire. He tried to sue Joe Biden, President Biden, for statements that Joe Biden made claiming that Rudy Giuliani was a Russian asset, that he was a Russian pawn during the 2020 debate with Donald Trump. And Rudy Giuliani, let's be frank, didn't like an article that was run in the New York Times on the very same day that he filed in New Hampshire. And to try to distract voters and distract the American public from that story, in which the New York Times detailed his alcoholism, his inability to be coherent, and at times that he often got impaired and drunk, decided to drop a new lawsuit on Joe Biden in New Hampshire, of all places. Now, some people might be thinking, why would you sue Joe Biden in New Hampshire? At best, he lives in the White House in the District of Columbia, and Rudy Giuliani lives in Florida or New York. Why? Because New Hampshire had a very long statute of limitations period, which is a time in which you need to file your lawsuit. Most states have 1 or 2 years. That would have been New York or D.C. But New Hampshire had a 3-year statute of limitations on defamation, allowing you to sue late when it relates to defamation. Plus, New Hampshire recognized that you could collect damages, which is money compensation for things that happen to you outside of the state of New Hampshire. So New Hampshire lets you sue on injuries that you may have suffered outside of New Hampshire. So a perfect place for plaintiffs and Rudy Giuliani to try to get some good press on the day he got terrible press in the expose in the New York Times. We got new reporting now. Rudy Giuliani has lost that case already. Now, let's go through all the losses, and I'll tell you what about this one in particular. In this one in particular, Rudy Giuliani just had a federal judge in New Hampshire dismiss the case because there is no personal jurisdiction over Joe Biden in New Hampshire. Quick Patreon breakout session, Legal AF law school session. Personal jurisdiction, the court has to have fundamentally 2 types of jurisdiction. Jurisdiction over the subject matter of the case. You're in the right court for that with the right judge, a judge of equity, a judge of law, federal versus state, something like that. It's your entry into the courthouse. But in order to sue the other person, the defendant, the court needs to be able to exert personal jurisdiction over that person. And the way they analyze that over a long line of United States Supreme Court decisions is to say, is it fair? Is it good due process? Is it proper for the defendant to anticipate that he or she or they would have been sued in that particular state? If the state is exercising what we call long-arm jurisdiction, in this case, the federal judge, to drag somebody out of their home, out of their residence, and bring them to this faraway place like New Hampshire, are there proper grounds under our due process and constitutional considerations, what we call constitutional minimum contexts, to bring this person afar into a new court? That's the personal jurisdiction debate that goes on almost in every case. Unless the person is sued where they live or where they reside or where they are the officer or director of a company. Otherwise, you have these personal jurisdiction fights. I'm in one right now in a case that I'm handling for one of my clients who got sued in Florida when he should have really been sued in Delaware, if anywhere. And so that's what happened. Now, the Biden side filed a motion to dismiss the case, not even on the substance of the case, just on lack of personal jurisdiction. In other words, you sued me in the wrong court. You sued me in the wrong place. Now, you'd think that Rudy Giuliani, who's basically working as his own lawyer, would understand that, having been a lawyer for almost 50 years, but yet he failed again. And based on the fact that the other side, Rudy Giuliani, never filed an opposition paper, never opposed the motion, the judge in the case, Judge Paul Barbadaro, a federal judge in New Hampshire, dismissed the case. Now, I want to back up a little bit, and I want to show you the actual defamatory clip and Rudy Giuliani's original reaction to it when he went on Newsmax to talk about the filing of the lawsuit back in 2023. Let's play the clip and watch President Biden calling out Rudy Giuliani as a Russian pawn. Let's roll.
Rudy Giuliani just filed a lawsuit accusing Joe Biden of defaming him. And we all saw it. We all saw the defamation. First of all, Mr. Giuliani, welcome back. How are you? I think this is a great thing you're doing. Congratulations.
Thank you. I appreciate it. We're just beginning our offensive, but it's a good start.
All right. So I believe the moment that, and it's just a moment, it's when he said you were basically a Russian pawn. Is that it? I've got it all queued up. Let's take a look. This is from
Absolutely. There's more to it, but that's the key part, yes.
All right. Let's all watch it together. This is a debate. Joe Biden is not president. He's not vice president. He is a private citizen, technically, in 2020, fall of. Take a look.
His buddy, Rudy Giuliani, he's being used as a Russian pawn. He's being fed information that is Russian, that is not true.
Okay. The problem with the defamation case, even if it could land in New Hampshire or he refiled it, Rudy Giuliani, in the District of Columbia or Delaware, wherever Joe Biden lives or resides, is that the ultimate defense to defamation is truth. And how much information do we now know about Rudy Giuliani and investigations around Rudy Giuliani that suggest that that Russian pawn bit is probably true? Let's go over in particular in Mother Jones magazine back in the day, back when this suit was originally filed. They did a very good expose, which I want to talk about, in which they listed all the ways that Rudy Giuliani may be a Russian pawn, which would provide an ultimate defense to any defamation case, but would also allow somebody like President Biden to air all this evidence against Rudy Giuliani in a court of law. Not exactly what Rudy Giuliani wants to go down for. He already got investigated criminally a few years ago as being a potentially unregistered foreign agent for places like Ukraine. That possible indictment kind of went by the wayside. But there's always been a sneaking suspicion that when there's smoke, there's fire, especially when it comes to Rudy Giuliani. So here's what Mother Jones had to say about it all in looking at the allegations. In September 2020, Trump's own Treasury Department sanctioned Andrei Derkach, a pro-Russian Ukrainian legislator who Giuliani met with in Ukraine while seeking dirt on Hunter Biden. Derkach has been an active Russian agent for over a decade, maintaining close connections with the Russian intelligence service. So here, a guy who got indicted for trying to run a extortion scheme against the Bidens was in close contact with Giuliani, who met with him, as alleged, in a sanction by Trump's own Treasury Department. Are you getting that? So why is it improper to call Giuliani in the heat of a debate a Russian pawn? The Treasury later sanctioned several other Ukrainians who also provided information on the Bidens to Giuliani. So Giuliani's on the receiving end of Derkach and the Russian intelligence agents' information and gathering. I mean, I just did a hot take recently on former FBI Deputy Director McCabe and his statements that he believes that Donald Trump is a Russian asset, is a Russian agent who's been turned by the Russians. And now we have Giuliani, but let's continue. Mother Jones also reported that there were additional allegations regarding a possible Russian influence over Giuliani, that Jonathan Buma, an FBI agent, told Congress this year, which would have been last year, that Giuliani may have been compromised by Russian intelligence during the 2020 campaign. He cited a $300,000 in payments to Giuliani by Ukrainian oligarch Pavel Fuchs, which has a misfortunate spelling of F-U-K-S, who Buma said the FBI suspected was a co-opted asset of the Russian intelligence service. So, I mean, was the president that far off to call Rudy Giuliani a Russian pawn? I mean, it was right in the middle of the whole Hunter Biden laptop issue, and he's debating Donald Trump. But truth is an ultimate defense of defamation. So I would suggest to you that even if this case were refiled by Rudy, it would die a slow death. It would be immediately dispatched. Now, the Judge Barbadaro, he said that Rudy Giuliani utterly failed to support his jurisdictional assertion or attempt to sue Biden so far from home in New Hampshire. Let's just go through the list of things that Rudy Giuliani's gone wrong. First thing Rudy Giuliani said is, oh, yeah, I missed the deadline because he never opposed the motion to dismiss on personal jurisdiction. And Rudy said, oh, well, I was in a bankruptcy proceeding. Let's talk about that bankruptcy proceeding for a minute. Rudy Giuliani ran to bankruptcy court to try to avoid paying a $148 million judgment for defamation brought by Ruby Freeman and Shay Moss, who are now his judgment creditors, if not his daddy. And he's been trying to avoid paying any of them. He filed bankruptcy. Eventually, the bankruptcy judge, Judge Lane in New York, found the bankruptcy filing to be in bad faith and dismissed the bankruptcy filing. During the bankruptcy filing, you're not allowed to go out to, if you're suing Rudy Giuliani, there's a stay, meaning the judge holds the ring, puts a pin in it, and doesn't allow you to continue the case until he adjudicates the bankruptcy. But there was no stay in the case that related to Rudy Giuliani in his affirmative action, his affirmative lawsuits that he filed against somebody like Joe Biden. So there's no excuse. You can't point to the now dismissed bankruptcy judge and the bankruptcy proceeding and say, oh, that's the reason. That's the reason I didn't file on time and didn't oppose at all the motion for summary judgment. That's a lie. Okay, so and the judge wasn't buying it. Now, let's look at the sordid tale of Rudy Giuliani over the last year and a half. He got indicted in Georgia, and he's still indicted in Georgia for election interference. He's indicted in Arizona for election interference and the use of the fake electors and the phony lawsuits that were filed to try to help Donald Trump. He's an unindicted co-conspirator in the D.C. election interference case. His bankruptcy was found to be filed in bad faith. He lost his bar license not once, but twice, once in the District of Columbia and the other one in New York. The one in New York, he lost his bar license because he failed to oppose the grievance or the sanction that was being proposed against him. He just failed to file the paper. Sound familiar? The bankruptcy was dismissed because he failed to file papers and properly participate in the bankruptcy proceeding. He flouts the rules. He's contumacious. He thumbs his nose at anything in the courtroom because he thinks he's above it and bigger than it all, because he thinks that Donald Trump is going to pardon him if he ever gets elected. That's what he thinks. Rudy Giuliani was also in the war room, along with Michael Flynn and Steve Bannon in the Willard Hotel on Jan 6th, trying to coordinate to stop the peaceful transfer of power. But I continue. Rudy Giuliani on the receiving end of a $148 million judgment. He was found in default in that case by a federal judge for his refusal to participate appropriately and violate at least 10 different court orders. He's about to lose his condo in Florida and his condo in New York to Ruby Freeman and Shane Moss, who will be able to drive around town in his Mercedes as well and wear the shirt off his back and the Yankee memorabilia off his fingers, and the rest. That Rudy Giuliani. So does it shock anybody here on Legal AF YouTube that Rudy Giuliani has lost a case for this phony case filed against Joe Biden in order to try to convince people not to pay attention to the scathing New York Times article, one in which it accused him on numerous times of making drunk dial phone calls that were recorded, where he was incoherent in meetings, incoherent potentially in the way into court. I mean, these are the allegations of the New York Times, not mine. So we're going to have to continue to follow it all, the sordid tale of watching Rudy Giuliani go down the drain, only on the Legal AF YouTube channel, where I'm doing exclusive content and I'm curating the top stories at the intersection of law and politics. Still doing all my great work over on the Midas Touch Network. This channel now is a collaboration of my work on the Midas Touch Network. You'll find Legal AF over there on the Midas Touch Network. But here, new original content, hot takes by me, others across the dial on the Midas Touch Network. A new show we'll be doing on the Supreme Court, starting right before the first Monday in October when the Supreme Court opens, called Unprecedented, and interviews you can only find one place, by free subscribing to this YouTube channel. If you haven't already, go out. We've already built an audience of over 20,000 subscribers in less than 2 days. And you can be part of our pro-democracy movement right here. So until my next hot take, until my next Legal AF, until my next exclusive content for this Legal AF YouTube channel, this is Michael Popok reporting. Heary, Legal AF Law Breakdown is now in session. Go beyond the headlines and get a deep dive into the important legal concepts you need to know and we discuss every day on Legal AF. Exclusive content you won't find anywhere else, all for the price of a couple of cups of coffee. Join us at patreon.com/legalaf. That's patreon.com/legalaf.